Walk into any major fashion week venue right now, and you will see something that has not appeared on runways at this scale in decades. Brooches pinned to lapels, ornate barrettes holding back styled hair, heavy hardware belts cinching tailored coats. The accessories your grandmother wore are back in serious fashion, and they are showing up on the people who shape what everyone else will wear for the next 3 years. You are about to see exactly why this shift is happening and how to wear it without looking dated. If you have spent the last decade watching minimalism dominate fashion, this return to ornament will feel like a small shock. The dainty necklaces, the tiny gold studs, the barely there bracelets, all of it is suddenly looking dated. Designers, stylists, and influencers are reaching for pieces with weight, history, and presence. The pendulum has swung, and accessories that once lived in jewelry boxes are now leading the conversation again. Here is what is driving the comeback. 3 years of recession-era dressing produced a generation tired of looking restrained. Quiet luxury hit its ceiling. Once everyone owned the same beige cashmere sweater, the only way to stand out was through accessories that actually made a statement. Heirloom pieces, especially the kind passed down through families or hunted in vintage stores, offer something fast fashion cannot replicate: character, imperfection, the visible mark of having been loved by someone before you. You should know which pieces are leading this revival. Brooches have come back hardest. Pin them to blazer lapels. Anchor them on the strap of a slip dress. Cluster 3 or 4 on a heavy coat collar. The placement rules have loosened. The size has grown. The materials range from antique enamel to chunky resin to vintage rhinestone. What unites the new wave is a willingness to use the brooch as a focal point rather than a small finishing touch. Stay with this, because barrettes are the second piece making the loudest noise. The big hair clips that defined the 1990s have returned, but now they are larger, more decorative, and worn with intent. Long pearl-studded barrettes, geometric metal pieces, floral arrangements that anchor an entire side of the hair. Stylists are using them on red carpets, in editorial shoots, and in everyday street style. The hairstyles built around them are softer, with loose waves and partial updos that leave the barrette as the visual centerpiece. Now look at the third trend, which has surprised even seasoned fashion editors. Hardware belts are dominating outerwear and tailoring this season. Heavy buckles, chunky metal links, wide leather straps with industrial details. These are not the dainty, thin belts of the recent past. They are statements that cinch a coat, define a jacket, or break up a long dress with a sharp interruption. They photograph well, which has helped them spread fast across every fashion social account that matters. Here is something else worth knowing about why these 3 accessories are leading. They all share a quality that fashion needs right now: texture. After years of smooth, minimal pieces, the eye is hungry for something with surface interest. Brooches catch light from multiple angles. Barrettes interrupt the smooth line of hair. Hardware belts add weight and shadow to a silhouette. Each of these effects adds visual depth that quiet luxury could not provide. And the new wave of dressing is built around the contrast. You should understand how to wear heirloom pieces without looking like you raided a costume box. The trick is to ground the look with modern, simple clothing. A plain black blazer with a vintage brooch reads as intentional. A floral midi dress with a heavy hardware belt reads as fresh. A sleek bun with one statement barrette reads as polished. The accessory carries the personality. The rest of the outfit gives it space to speak. When you stack too many vintage elements, the look tips into nostalgia, and the modern intent gets lost. Stay with this, because the secondhand market is the biggest driver of this trend in real life. Vintage stores, online auction platforms, and estate sales have seen massive jumps in searches for brooches, barrettes, and hardware belts over the past year. Shoppers under 30 are leading the demand. They want pieces with history. They want jewelry that no influencer will be wearing in the same color the following week. The supply is also higher than at any point in recent memory because so many estates are being sold off as older generations downsize. Now think about where to start hunting. Estate sales remain the gold standard for serious vintage shopping. Online platforms like vintage-focused resale sites have built huge categories specifically for these accessories. Family heirlooms, if you have access to them, are often the most powerful place to look. A piece that belonged to a grandmother or aunt carries a story that no purchase can replicate. And the modern fashion world has finally caught up to what families have always known about how meaningful those pieces can be. Here is a practical tip that most articles skip. The price difference between a vintage brooch from a thrift store and the same style from a designer collection can run into the thousands. Designers have been recreating these heirloom looks at premium prices, but the originals often sit untouched in vintage shops for under $50. The cleverest dressers are buying the originals, and saving the difference. And they end up with pieces that have more character than anything coming out of a current factory line. You should also know that this trend has crossed into menswear in a meaningful way. Men are pinning small brooches to suit jackets at weddings and events. Hardware belts have appeared on runways for men's tailoring. The barrette has not crossed the line as strongly, but adjacent accessories like beaded cuffs and decorative collar pins have started to appear in editorial menswear shoots. The boundary between feminine and masculine accessories is softer than it has been in years. Stay with this for a moment longer, because the financial side of this trend is interesting in its own right. Antique jewelry has historically held value better than most fashion accessories. A vintage brooch from a known maker can appreciate over time, while a current designer piece usually loses most of its value the moment you walk out of the store. Buying heirloom accessories is one of the few ways to dress with personality, and also build a small collection of items that may be worth more in 10 years than they are today. Now consider what this trend says about the broader culture. Fashion is moving away from disposable purchases toward pieces with depth. The desire for items with history is partly a reaction against fast fashion, partly a generational shift in values, and partly a recognition that minimalism took the personality out of dressing. Heirloom accessories let you have it all. Sustainable, personal, visually striking. None of those qualities are easy to combine, and the return of brooches, barrettes, and hardware belts is one of the rare moments when all three meet. Here is the closing thought on this trend. The accessories your grandmother wore are not just fashionable again, they are leading the conversation. Whether you raid a family jewelry box, hunt through a vintage store, or invest in a piece from a current designer reviving the look, you are stepping into a movement that values story, texture, and intention over disposable trend cycles. You should also know about a quieter shift happening alongside this trend. Repair has become fashionable again. Old brooches with broken clasps, barrettes with bent hinges, and belts with damaged buckles are being restored rather than discarded. Skilled jewelers, leatherworkers, and metalsmiths have seen a wave of new business from customers bringing in inherited or vintage pieces for repair. The willingness to invest in repair signals a deeper change in how people think about ownership, and the heirloom accessory trend is one of the most visible expressions of it. Now think about how this could shape your own wardrobe over the next few years. Building a small collection of well-chosen accessories, then maintaining and repairing them across decades, is the opposite of how most modern wardrobes are built. Most clothes get worn briefly, then disposed of, then replaced. Accessories with real character break that cycle. A single great brooch can outlast hundreds of cheaper purchases, and the cost per wear over a lifetime ends up far lower than anything fast fashion can offer. You should take one small action this week. Find one heirloom-style piece, whether vintage or new, and add it to an outfit you already own. The transformation will be immediate. The piece will become a conversation starter, and you will start to understand why everyone from runway stylists to street-style photographers has fallen back in love with the kind of accessories that used to live in your grandmother's drawer.